Hi, I'm John F. Allen. And I'm R.J. Sullivan. And we're the Two Towers.
Because it shows that Diana had established herself in this world and had made a life for herself, which brings me to one of the other criticisms people have. They feel like Diana's entire life had somehow come to a standstill because of Steve. And I never got that. I got that she was still kind of mourning him, and I got that she was maybe stuck in there in the relationship wise. She couldn't have another relationship, but that doesn't mean her entire life. Clearly, her life had not come to a halt. She was very successful at what she did, and I feel it's important to mention that because people are bringing it up like apparently in 65 years she didn't do anything, or I guess it'd be more than that, wouldn't it?
And
Well,
those
well,
are people who think relationships are the only thing that matter. And it's
right,
like,
Right,
well,
right.
yeah, yeah.
right. Because yeah, the film implies that romantically, once Steve died, that was it. She didn't date, she didn't really have a social life. And that's true based upon what the film tells us. But that
Right.
doesn't mean she doesn't have a life that she's developed, because obviously she's become a part of the museum. She can't have worked at the museum from the time that the last movie's events ended. She would have had to have reinvented herself over those decades, because somebody would have been like, now look, you've been working here 60 years and you haven't aged a day. Something's wrong. So
and
we have to
and
take consideration that she's had to change, careers and change her identity and things like that, to be able to fit within the man's world.
but she was successful enough that people envied her, which brings us to the Barbara Minerva story and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that people saw her as a success in what she did. So I just think it was kind of interesting that one of the criticisms is like somehow Diana's life had frozen in place since World War One, and I'm like, no, clearly not, because
Right.
she
They're taking one aspect of that and making
right,
it into the whole thing. Yeah, her one aspect of her life was frozen in place because she was hung up on Steve and did not and decided that dating other men. And it goes back to her being immortal. She probably thought, well, men, like humans are gonna die. I've already fallen in love and lost the love of my life. Why would I want to get involved with another human knowing that they're gonna only either get killed or end up growing old and dying? And plus, she had not had the fulfillment of a long lasting relationship with the person she fell in love with, because he got killed, what, like a month, two
Right.
after she met him.
right.
I
Right.
mean, but you bring up a good point about Cheetah's character, the Barbara Minerva character, and other people envying her. And I guess maybe at this point we can move forward to that character.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
uh, People, it shows the 80s. It shows mankind in general, but it shows the 80s. And why were they envious of her? It was partly because of, where she had risen within the ranks of the museum and her knowledge and stuff. But let's just face it, at the end of the day, most people were enamored by her beauty. It's a prevalent thing throughout this entire film. Every man that looks at her loses his shit. I mean, and every woman that looks at her is like, damn, I wish I could be you.
Well,
I mean, it's just and it's an aura that she has, and that carries over. So with Barbara Minerva being the person that they did not recognize when she walked in the room, they couldn't even remember her name. They didn't want to remember her name. She was unnoticeable, or whatnot. It it speaks a lot to that. I felt that before in my when I was a kid. I wasn't considered very attractive by other kids. The little girls thought, they teased me, made fun of me if they even acknowledged me at all. And I know what it feels like to be invisible and not even recognized or acknowledged or whatnot. So I know how that feels and how I longed for that to change. Well, it did. A lot of things changed in my life. I got out of that, and I became a halfway decent person. I'm not Denzel Washington, but I'm not chopped liver either. So my thoughts were that I had kind of grown out of it. Well, apparently this woman is probably playing younger than she actually is. It's probably in her 30s, and she hasn't grown out of it. And we see her at a low point in her life. And it's ironic that the person that she envies is the person to befriend her.
Mm-hmm.
And that sets up this thing where it becomes a genuine friendship because, you know, Diana is kind of detached from people because she's lost all of her friends. So she's probably leery about making new ones. But then she gets to meet Barbara, and she really sees that she needs a friend. And what kind of person would she be to not be her friend for selfish motivations? So being Diana, she befriends her and is genuine. But you can't be around somebody who you envy and not think, wow, I wish I could have what they have. It's human. We all have done this. And this is what happens. She gets her hand on the Dreamstone, and she has this wish, and she does not realize, even she doesn't even realize to a full extent that this is real, because they both thinking this, well, not Diana so much, but, you know, Barbara was like, you know, it's just a folks tale. This isn't real, you know, but boy, if it was, I sure wish I could. And this is what happens. And then she goes down a dark path because anybody who has been shunned, who's been invisible, who's been ridiculed, and now all of a sudden, overnight, their life changes. There's a certain power in that, and that power can corrupt you. And that's what we're seeing unfold here, because Barbara's not an evil character in the beginning. She's not somebody that's unlikable. You know, you're not like, you know, she's just, you know, I mean, you actually have sympathy for her, and, you know, then you see her kind of come out of her shell, but that power starts to taint her, you know, it corrupt her. And the euphoric feelings that she'd never experienced before begin to corrupt her. And then the influence of Maxwell Lord, who is trying to get from her what he ultimately wants, begins to corrupt her even more. And that's not Barbara, but that's another problem I have with this film, was Maxwell Lord's intentions. It's like it felt like mustache twirling. Like, my life has been hard. I lived in South America and no one ever believed in me. But if I can get this stone, then I'm going to change all of that. And it's like, that's your motivation, dude?
Before we move on to Maxwell, I just wanted to talk about Barbara a little bit more, because what they did show of her in the beginning is that not only is she shunned and she has all of that, but she's also very kind-hearted. You know, they show her giving the food to the homeless man, and they show her, you know, just being very caring and a very kind heart. And then what they talk about is that when you make this wish, you have to give something up. So not only was she feeling this power and this respect and this attention all of a sudden, but she was losing that human side of herself, that humanity that she had. I feel that's what it took. It took away the fact that she cared about, even with all of the, you know, the low feelings that she had and being shunned and being alone, even with all of that, she still cared about people.
Right.
But the stone took away that care. She didn't care about anybody else, because now, you know, she was this. And I think that's something that kind of gets forgotten about her from the beginning, is that she had this really kind heart. And
I really like that scene. And also, a lot of people wanted to compare this to the arcs of the Riddler, and I don't remember which Batman movie that was. John can chime in there. And Amazing Spider-Man 2, the Electro plot, where you have an employee of the company blaming the hero for their plight. I don't know where that comes from, because Dr. Minerva never blames Diana for anything. In fact, she seems to pretty much enjoy the transformation as it's happening and welcoming it. I mean, yeah, she comes to see Wonder Woman as her rival, but she never blames Diana for where she is as the Cheetah. And I found that an odd criticism. I just thought I'd work that in there because we were getting to that part of the story. But I never saw Dr. Minerva regret anything, where she felt like she was taking things too far, even when she clearly was. She continued to want more and more power until it got out of control, and then Diana had to kind of save her at that point. I don't like that CGI fight at the end, but I liked what they did with it. I liked the fact that there were some people who thought that Wonder Woman killed Cheetah at the end, but I'm pretty sure I saw her moving.
No, they had a scene after people invoked their wishes that she wasn't dead. No.
Yeah. So she took her out, but didn't take her out. You know what I mean?
Right. She had to stop her, and when she said she was sorry for that electricity in the water scenario, she probably had a pretty much a good idea that she'd be able to survive it with her power levels. But that was one of the only ways that she could be sure to just knock her out, because she had other stuff to do. She had to stop Maxwell Lord. But to get back to what you were saying, I don't see that either. I don't see it. And it was Batman Forever, by the way. It was the film.
Thank you. I knew you would know.
But I didn't see it like that. I saw it to where she wasn't blaming Diana for any of her problems, but she did see that Diana was a threat to her power.
Sure.
And because Diana, no, you don't know, you've got to give this up or whatnot. And then Barbara was like, give it up. Girl, you've been living with this all your life, and I just get it. Now you want to take it away? I don't think so. And that's exactly the kind of way that it was played out. Now, going back to the fights, the one in the White House was the best by far.
That was amazing, and I don't know why more people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
I almost wish they had stopped the transformation there.
Well, I think that if it had been me, of course I didn't write this, but as a writer, as an author, I would have done this differently. What I would have done was, she didn't make the full transformation to Cheetah in this film, but at the very end, she didn't fully revoke her wish. She didn't have to revoke her personal wish. As long as everybody else had revoked it or whatnot, she could have held on to hers. And what I would have had happen is go back to the comics, have her travel to South America, and actually become a were-cheetah. And then in the new film 3, that's when she reemerges. But it's only like a situation where, like at the end of Batman v Superman, where you flash forward to the future and you see what's happened. And because she's gone through this transformation, she's now immortal like Diana, but now she's just more animal than anything. That's how you explain it without compromising all of the other things that happen in this film. But and another thing that kind of bothered me, it's a little trivial thing, but it's like, cheetahs aren't really apex predators. So like when she said she wanted to be an apex predator, it's like, if she wanted to be an apex predator, she would have been a lion.
And now you're a shark. Yeah.
Something like that, I mean, not just right. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, it didn't take me out, but I just chuckled about that because I thought it was like, y'all reaching a little bit here, but okay.
Yeah, your idea would have been so much better. Yeah.
Oh, I can remember Cheetah's origin. It can get a little sketchy if they did it exactly like the comic books. Doesn't she have a manservant or something that kind of follows her around
She
And
did
it's
at one point, but like in the very beginning when she was first introduced back in the 40s, she was just a woman in a costume. It was almost like Catwoman at that point, you know. But then they retconned her to where now she has actual superpowers and that made sense. For those who don't know the mythology, it's like you got this uber powerful woman with a magic lasso who can pick up a car, and she getting her ass kicked by some chick in a cheetah costume. That just doesn't make any sense at all. I'm just let's be realistic. So now it's retconned where Cheetah has actually got mystical origin that gives her the ferocity of a cheetah, but also imbues her with a magic that can affect Diana, which makes sense why her claws can cut Diana, or why she's as strong as she is, or whatnot. It makes sense now, and I like the new interpretation of Cheetah a lot better than I did when, like, going back to the Super Friends. Oh, Wonder Woman, I'm going to scratch your eyes out. Well, you'll think again, Cheetah, because I'm going to use my magic lasso to snare you. Okay. It's almost as laughable as me going up to The Rock talking about I'm going to kick his ass. Like, I know I'm not going to kick The Rock's ass because A, he's younger than me, B, he's in a whole lot better shape than me, and he can fight better than I can. What the hell makes me think I'm going to kick his ass? I hit him with a damn bat and run.
Right. And he probably would have a bodyguard anyway, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, except for that last little tussle, that I thought seemed kind of throwaway. I wish it was more epic because Cheetah is a big deal in the comics, and I was a little disappointed that it came to that was where they ended it. But I appreciated, again, the idea that Wonder Woman did not get lethal and managed to dispatch her and kind of diffuse the situation that way, because I think that's very much in character.
I would like to interject.
I know I'm bouncing.
Well, I would like to interject that I think
go ahead.
Wig did a good job as Barbara Minerva / Cheetah. I think, if anybody's familiar with her, she's a staple from SNL, Saturday Night Live, for you kids who, maybe.
Yes.
But, and she's a terrific, funny comedian. I mean, I love her to death. But now she's getting more dramatic roles, kind of a la Jamie Foxx and others, who were just like hilarious as comedians, but now they're showing a lot of depth as actors in getting these dramatic roles and pulling them off believably. So that in and of itself, to me, shines through with her portrayal of the character. I think Kristen Wiig did a very good job. I'm glad they cast her in this role.
Yeah, I thought she brought a lot to it. Starting off being so awkward and kind-hearted, and then when she first turns evil and fights off that attacker, although he definitely had a butt kicking coming, you could definitely see that it crossed the line at a certain point, and she was enjoying it. I thought that the actress did a fantastic job of bringing all that nuance to the part, and then from there, really, once she teamed up with Maxwell Lord and became kind of his sidekick there for a while. I wish we had more time with that part of it, because to me that's where the movie really it was doing very well. That was probably the most interesting part for me, the White House scene and everything that went on there. Let's see. I'm curious, because this is something that comes up a lot, because I didn't feel this. John may feel differently, but people were criticizing that after the first sequence, there's no quote Wonder Woman scene for over an hour, until the car chase in the desert, I guess we'd call it that, which I thought was fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
There was the mall scene came before that.
Well, that's what I mean. From between the mall scene and the
okay,
the car chase.
There,
So,
well, that's true. There wasn't any real Wonder Woman sequences in there, and that's true. But you had a lot of build up to from point A
yeah,
to point B, and you had a lot of development of Barbara Minerva's character and Maxwell Lord's motivations, albeit
yeah.
how silly they were. But it was still explained. So I wanted to interject on that because that's another complaint that I have about this. Not so much that we didn't see Wonder Woman in costume and all that, but that seemed to drag a little bit. It made this film feel a lot longer than it should have been for me. And
Mm.
that's one of the complaints that I had about it. Um, it should have stepped up. I didn't like Maxwell Lord's motivation to begin with. So seeing more of that was like, okay.
All right, we'll get there. But I mean, my thing when I heard that complaint, I was kind of taken aback because I guess when I watched these two movies, I see Diana and Wonder Woman as a single character, the way I see Iron Man and Tony Stark as a single character. I hear the same complaint about Iron Man 3 because it's like there's an hour from one sequence to the other where he's just Tony Stark, but he's got the wrist gadgets and all that. But to me, I'm still watching the character I'm here to see doing the stuff. So I was taken a little bit aback when I heard that complaint because I'm like, Diana's all over this thing. What do you guys? Oh, you mean she wasn't beating people up in the bathing suit? Is what they mean. You
Yeah,
know?
the action. It was.
Yeah.
I will say it drug for me because there wasn't a lot of action. Like you got this kick-ass scene on Themyscira in the very beginning. Then you've got that mall scene, which was awesome.
Right.
Then you've got all this development, and then, like I say, Maxwell Lord is like, So then, you finally get to the whole chase in Egypt or Bialia, wherever they were at over there, to before there's some, real action going on. And yeah, to me, viewing it was slow. That was a slow point. But I will say this though, like you, I see Diana and Wonder Woman as the same person, much like Tony Stark and Iron Man. But this film does something that the first film didn't do, which goes back to what Danielle was saying. It makes it feel like a superhero film. And if you're going to have a superhero film, you can't have a whole lot of lulls without some kind of action. Even if you go back to the Christopher Reeve Superman film, which they did have a big lull of action or whatnot, he was constantly displaying his powers one way or another somewhere. Like even if he was Clark Kent, he was doing little subtle things to either hide his identity or save someone indirectly. There was some comedic beat to it. There was always something going on, So I think that I kind of think that that's somewhat valid. I wouldn't say that it was completely valid, but I could see where some people might have some complaints.
Yeah.
I keep losing my thoughts, but let me see if I can remember all the things I want to say about this. One is in the first movie, there is also a very big lull from when they leave the island to when they have the fight in the alley. And even that fight in the alley is pretty quick. And then you really don't get anything huge until No Man's Land.
True.
So it's like, again, I've heard that too, that people thought this was kind of slow. And I think the first time I watched it, there were a couple of scenes where I was like, okay, next, but the second time I watched it, it didn't bother me at all. But yeah, to me, it's like Diana's on the screen. And I think that in between the mall scene and the fight in the desert, or the car chase one, we have the invisible jet scene that happens. So even though she wasn't Wonder Woman, we still got a Wonder Woman power in there. We finally got to see the invisible jet, so we got that
I
moment.
see what you did there.
Thank you very much. But yeah, I've heard that, and I'm like, people are like, oh, it was so boring and so slow, and I'm like, really? Okay, I guess that's watching it from a non-super fan point of view, I guess.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always engaged. I was engaged with the Diana story, so it didn't. Yes, it was slower. No, there wasn't as much action, but I was fine with that. I was okay with that for the length of time that it went. You've met I keep meaning to comment on the invisible jet thing, to which I will say it didn't work that well for me, but I understand why it was in there, because it was fan service. It was like,
I wanted it.
people want to see the invisible jet, so dang it, we're going to get the invisible jet in there. And I was like, okay, you got that in there, now let's move on.
That's exactly how I felt. I was like, once it happened, that whole flying through the fireworks, I'm guessing probably looked really pretty on the big screen, but I was like, okay, we saw the fireworks, cool, I got the jet, let's next. Like, that's,
yeah, check that off the box, check that box and move on. Yeah.
But you know, it's set up. I like that, and not just for the fan service, but I liked it for two reasons. One, it showed that she was basically more powerful than you realize, and she could do things more than even she realized she could do, which leads really into other movies where you could see her display these different powers in a way. And I thought that was cool, but it also set up, it really did a good job subtly, but it did a good job of setting up why she doesn't need an invisible jet.
Yes.
Because now you know she could have one, but then when she learns to fly, you know she doesn't need one. And that dispels that whole thing. So we can leave the invisible jet with Linda Carter.
Right.
Be done with it. And now we got our fan service, but now we also realize why she doesn't need it. So we can let that horse die.
Fantastic point made. Thank you.
You teed me up. I'm gonna take the swing. I've talked about moments that moved me. Where she says goodbye to Steve, and then she discovers her ability to fly right after. I did not cry, but boy, that was a tough fight.
I cried.
I didn't cry either, but it was very powerful.
It was all the feels. And I mean, so much. There's one other scene I compare it to in all superhero films, which is in Spider-Man 2, when the subway train scene where the pedestrian's not the right words, the normal people carry him,
the train.
Yeah, the passengers carry him. They pull him off the front of the train, and they kind of very gentle.
I know.
It's that I had literal tears coming down my face when I saw that way back in 2002, because it showed such an understanding of who the character is. And this was kind of the same thing, because I've read the comics. I know she can fly. I'm irritated at the whole invisible jet thing, because that's what Linda Carter's show is known for. That's what was in the comics for so long. But when they rebooted her, they gave her something so much neater, and they finally got it onto the big screen. But they did it in a way that made it a character moment, where that was the growth of the character at that point. And to tie it so directly into getting that power, I guess that might have been my no man's land moment. I don't know, but that was more moving for me than anything in the first film, or many movies that I've seen on the big screen. I'll be the first one to admit this movie gets a little crazy in a lot of spots, but I had a lot of major feel-good moments, and that was one of them.
Did you guys feel the comparable feelings with regards to what you were seeing to the first Superman film? In that scene, when she was learning how to fly, it was just like when Kal-El was flying, and he was right before he saved Lois, and he turned time back, and he was hearing Jor-El's voice in the clouds, and he was telling him, and then he was starting to hear Jonathan Kent's voice too, and all the things that had been said to him, and she was hearing Steve's voice. And that took me back to that film.
Yeah,
and what made that film so great And I will admit, that's one of the favorite parts of this film. This is one of the things for Wonder Woman 1984. This was one of the reasons, that scene, there are others, but that scene was one of the reasons why I just can't see how people could give this film an F. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of things I didn't like, but there were more things like that carried so much weight that made me, I couldn't bring myself to just fail this film, because to me, it's not a failure. It's a backslide, but there's a whole difference between a backslide and a failure. And I think that that's what this film is. It's a backslide from the first one. All the things in the first one that they got right, enough of those things they didn't get right in this film. But some of the other things that we wanted, fans of the character wanted, were manifested in this film. The colors, the vibrance, you get to see her in the day, and you see the red, the blue, it pops, it makes you feel like you're in a superhero film. And I think that that's one of the things that endears me to this particular movie, and that I find most enjoyable about this film. But since we're talking about emotions, I will say that I was like you, RJ, I was interested in Pedro Pascal's performance. I didn't like his character's motivations, but his relationship with his son, when he came to realize, that got me. That was one of the being a father, having a son, and in my personal situation with regards to certain things, that put me in the fields more. And it's that moment when I had a watershed that it just ran down, and I was like, I'm good with it. But I mean, that was a very powerful thing when he realized, she made him realize who he was and what he had. He wanted all this material stuff. He wanted all these accolades, but what he had that was most important to him, he was pushing aside for all that. And then when he realized that, then that's when, he realized he had what he needed.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the end. The end did not work for me entirely, but I liked what they were trying to do. I love the fact that she talked Max down instead of punching him out, which is what you would expect in a movie. It didn't quite carry through for me. I didn't quite believe it, but I thought it was very much the way Wonder Woman would have handled it.
Yeah.
And I also thought that the change in the character also worked for me, like you just described. He had been so much in one mode. He wanted everything. It's not talked about a whole lot. I like the way the stone worked, where he would have someone make a wish, and then he would set up what the negative side would be. And then it would be something like, if something was taken from him, he would get it back by using that counter wish, so that he was constantly kind of like self-repairing as he went. It took a few tries for me to figure out that that's what he was doing, but I was like, that's kind of clever, actually. But then, like you said, I like the fact that he wasn't just one note. He changed at the end, and he actually had that, I don't know, that Grinch moment where his heart grew. Some people are going to find that kind of corny, but I was like, people are complicated. And it showed a complexity to his character that I thought was kind of neat. So one of the criticisms I have with the end is something that my son Steven brought up, where it's like everyone had to renounce their wish, and my son said, people my age, every third wish is for world peace.
That's what we said. We actually said the second time we watched it, my husband said, wouldn't one person have wished for world peace? And then what? Then what happens if one person says, I wish for world peace?
Or that that disease that someone can recover from. I mean, what about these people? They showed someone got killed.
It was the height of AIDS. Hello. I mean,
right?
at that
Yeah,
time
it's like,
in
what about these
history,
good wishes that were out there? Do they have to renounce those as well? Which I was
right?
like, I wonder if they thought that through so much, but
Hey,
that was an
here's the
interesting
thing.
question.
No, they didn't, and it's okay. It's a superhero movie.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, and that's always my thing when I get into arguments with people about these kind of movies is like, look, it's not all going to be perfect. It's a superhero movie. You have to just accept some of these things, especially something like that, because yeah, of course there's going to be people that are like, I wish cancer didn't exist, and
Sure.
but what do you give up for cancer to not exist? And then maybe if cancer doesn't exist, well, now we're going to get some new that's where COVID came from,
You figured it out.
Right.
Dang it.
Son of a gun.
And it goes back to the whole thing that I mentioned earlier, was that you can't create something from nothing. So there's a give and take.
Right.
And you can't have something without there being some kind of repercussion for having it. And even those good wishes, there's something has to change. And you brought up cancer. So if cancer doesn't exist, then every oncologist is out of a job. And I hate to say this, but it actually is a part of life, which is sad. But the population is since it's the number one killer, you're going to become more overpopulated in countries. There's a cause and effect for everything. No matter how good the wish is, there's some repercussion.
Right. Well, something we always say, just in life in general, is don't ever say things can't get worse. So, okay, fine. I wish for cancer to go away. Cancer's gone. What's the next thing? Something's going to take its place.
Right. Well, and
like 2020, people are saying you can't get any worse. Shut up, because
shut your mouth. Right. 2021 has just started. We don't know where it's going.
Okay.
Don't just zip it and just live your life, and let's hope.
Right.
I can remember being very glad when 2019 ended, thinking things can only go
and look what you did.
I know, it's my fault.
But yes, so speaking of that the wishing and the reaper, it's like, don't think about it. But yeah, the ending was very, it was odd to me. I like Pedro Pascal. I've seen him in other things even beyond the Mandalorian.
Game of Thrones.
What was that?
Game of Thrones.
Right. But there's a movie, crud. Now I'm not going to be able to think of what it's called. I'll look it up. I'll come back to you. But there's a movie where he plays he's a vampire. I love vampires. That can be a whole other thing if we ever want to talk about that. But and I think that movie is so funny. But anyway, he was so over the top in this movie, and I know.
Bastards.
What was it called?
Blood-sucking bastards.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so funny. If you haven't seen it, look it up. But anyway, he was I know the character itself was supposed to be over the top, but my goodness, if you want to see what overacting looks like, that is it. That is storybook overacting right there. And I mean, does it work for the character? I guess, but I don't know. I'm kind of with you on that one with Max. That whole character, I was like, I would have rather Barbara be more of the. She could have been a bigger part for me. That would have made me happy. But I
will say, I guess I'm going to be the one defending Pedro Pascal. I didn't mind his performance. I mean, I agree. Barbara should have had a bigger part. I would have liked to have seen that. But I mean, he did provide the actual threat to the movie where everything, I mean, it was practically world destruction. And I liked the fact that they went for the big stakes. And I didn't mind the big performance. He definitely went for it. And I didn't mind that because I thought the character reminded me of someone who seems like he just can't get enough of stuff.
Who could you be referring to?
Who you're talking about?
That's what I'm not saying that. I'm saying, they based him off of Trump, and I could totally see Trump doing that. And
but But
That's
that
a
end,
horror movie.
that
Yeah,
ending
right?
never happened if it had been Trump. He would have
What's
just
that?
that ending wouldn't have happened
Oh
if it
no.
had been Trump.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh,
About
see?
your son, he'd be like, "Do I have a son?" I'm sorry.
Yeah,
See, I must stop. I must stop.
we might want to cut this part out, John. Anyway.
So
Right.
one thing about Pedro Pascal's performance, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that this is the antithesis of how she handled Maxwell Lord's character in the comics. She snapped his neck. This is her showing him without violence that he can change, and he did. So that's a good, twist on what happened in the comics. One thing I think, if I were writing this, I would have repercussions for all of this. So some people did not give up their wishes, and this is going to come back and bite Diana in the ass. And it would have, and like I went back, it would have been perfect if it were Barbara. If that had been her thing, yeah, she had a change of heart, but then she lusted for the power so much that she was going to find something else, and that's
Right.
But that's just me.
I also thought it was interesting that, and again, this is when you start thinking about things too much, but so what, Max just gets to go back to having his normal life after we all know what he did. Just because we renounced our wish doesn't mean we don't remember, or do, I don't know, but we don't remember what happened. So here's this guy who almost destroyed the world, but now he loves his son again, so we're cool. It's like, wait a minute.
You know what popped in my head in that realization was Wings, the band Wings. Man on the run.
Yeah, right.
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 And I mean, again, we didn't need another half hour of the movie to find out what happens to Max. I don't really care. But like, I just thought it was funny that it was like, oh, I love my son. Now, let's go to the park. I don't know.
Let's walk into the sunset to hold him.
Right. Like,
now you can get out of jail to see his graduation from college.
Right.
Maybe.
Which I thought would have been even more of a thing where that happens, and then they cart Max off to jail, and his son is scorned by this, and then he grows up to be the Maxwell Lord of present day.
There you go.
There you go. See.
Maybe I keep saying that DC needs to hire me, and they make a whole lot of money, but no one's listening.
Maybe that'll be how the third movie starts. Maybe it'll be, what happens to Max Lord. And
so I want to hit a couple more of my favorite parts. The chase in the desert I thought was fantastic. I loved every second of that, and then the fight in the White House is not talked about enough, but. That was a really high tension action scene.
Right.
Those
choreographed. Choreographed.
Yeah.
And those that complain about the cheetah, I'm like, that was also the cheetah.
Yeah, right. Right. The only thing I didn't like about the desert chase was the kids in the street.
That was a little weird.
We're playing ball. Like, get the hell up.
And you don't hear all these trucks coming. I mean, they are barreling it.
Stupid. But yeah, it was like, I was like, okay. Like, I know that anybody listening who hated the film is going to laugh at me when I say this, but there may have been some moments that were a wee bit heavy-handed.
What?
And that would be one of them, where it was like just a wee bit. But I was just like, I love that. Like, we were just laughing. We're children. We're playing.
I don't have any sense because I see trucks coming, but I'm gonna play anyway.
Right. Up to that moment, I was like, this chase scene is the tits, man. Like, I loved it. So like, I was loving that. And then I love that it was showing that her powers were starting to weaken, and starting to get that whole thing about it. And man, and I know it was in the commercials, but still, when she flipped that car and she comes flying over the top of it, I was like, hell yeah. I was like, this is great. But yeah, then that children thing, I was like, ugh, darn it.
Now here's a deep cut trivia type of thing that we can tie in with the DCEU. So hold on just a second. Basically, the country that they were in, Bialia.
Yeah, I know where you're going. Go ahead.
So that particular country is a fictional country in the DC mythos. And that is
one of the Easter eggs. Yeah.
One of the Easter eggs, yes. That, they kind of hinted upon, and I'm going to pull it up here, but there's a Black Adam movie.
Yes.
Wow.
Bialia
is the country in the Middle Eastern Asia to the north of Saudi Arabia and Iran in DC Comics lore. And it is a struggling populace. It's a desert country. But it's also tied to Captain Atom, another DC character, and it's tied to Black Adam. He attacked that country and took it over in the comics because they had killed his wife. So it's amazing that they set this up in this film knowing they're going to make a Black Adam movie. I'm one of those people that loves to watch comic book and superhero movies and pick out these little Easter eggs, because I think that's one of the most, it's almost like getting a bonus, life in a video game. Remember when you get a bonus playing Miss Pac-Man? Ooh, I got an extra life. That's kind of how I am with those little Easter eggs or whatnot. But just to give you another little tidbit of real life trivia, there's a town in Mississippi called Bialia.
Let's take a road trip.
Oh no, y'all gonna have to go on your own, because it's a little small place, and I'm not sure they might
Mississippi.
Me.
You don't want to go there?
I understand.
Yeah, I don't think they like folk like me. I ain't trying to.
Bunch of bitches.
We don't know. It could be very nice.
Oh yeah, somebody in Bialia is like, what the hell, bitch?
All right.
And you a thumbs down.
They start playing the banjo. I'm like, yeah.
I mean, we're already getting the Trump fans giving us all a thumbs down. I guess at this point we may as well go the rest of the way with it.
Right.
Now we're getting sued. Great.
Yeah. All right. So that's pretty much it.
Well, we have one more thing we need to talk about.
Oh, yes, we do. I just remembered. Go ahead.
The cutscene at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Hell yeah. How freaking awesome was that? Linda Carter, looking gorgeous as always. Fantastic.
I thought it was perfect. And I remember going, they should have done this at the end of the first one, but never mind.
Yeah. But I love that moment. Of course.
That was cool, because I had not been spoiled to me yet, and I was totally caught off guard, and it put a big, I already had a big dumb smile on my face, not just made it whiter.
Right.
And the fact that the character of Asteria comes from the Greek mythos, from the Greek mythology, and that name, it basically the starry one of the stars, but it's the name of the Titaness. She was a female Titan. In Greek mythology, but that was also the name of a bunch of other people. She was the 9th Amazon killed by Hercules when he came for Hippolyta's girdle in the 12 labors. I love mythology, and I was like, oh wow, so the whole thing of it is the idea that they worked Linda Carter into this, and the way that they worked her into this, and how gorgeous she looks, even 40 years later, is just amazing, and it's wonderful in and of itself. See what I did there?
Yeah.
But I'm really I really enjoyed that scene. It also opens the door for if she wants to be seen in other films or whatnot, which would be interesting. And just a tidbit of trivia from some of the specials and behind the scenes that I've read and watched. Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, and Linda Carter are in constant. They've developed a friendship and a camaraderie that they talk and text each other like every day. I mean, and I thought that was just a wonderful thing.
That's awesome.
That to me, it's because that's like 3 generations of women. Gal Gadot being the youngest, and then Patty Jenkins, and then Linda Carter.
Yeah, I love that.
So, final thoughts. Do we think that this movie do you think people will cool down about it, and maybe do you think it'll be looked at a little better regarded over time? Do we have any thoughts on that?
I'll let someone else talk first.
It's an interesting question. I think that people anymore like to hold on to this like anger about things. Like, my God, how many fights have I gotten into over Star Wars and new versus old and all that stuff? And it's like, and still you hold this anger about this stuff. So I don't know. I don't know if this one was as obviously Star Wars has this hold over people, and which I get. I've been a Star Wars geek my whole life, but so yeah, I don't know. I would want to say, like, give it a second chance, watch it again, because honestly, I liked it. I liked it the first time I watched it. I liked it even more the second time I watched it. Now I'm a big fan, so I don't know how, but so I don't know. I think, sorry, my thoughts just went everywhere all at once. But I think when the third movie comes out, I think it will be better than the second movie. Still not as good as the first movie, which is pretty normal. But I think it will be better than the second movie. And then I think people will stop it'll always be the Temple of Doom. It's always going to be that, well, remember the Temple of Doom exists, but let's talk about the other two, the fourth one, that's its own thing. But so yeah, I think that's kind of what's going to happen, is that it will always be that, well, there was that second one and I didn't like that one, but boy, that first one, the third one were really good. So that's what I hope.
Yeah, well, we're at a point now where the first 3 Star Wars episodes are now well regarded, so anything can happen. But no, I guess my feeling on it is, I still remember when people were so ready for the first one to fail, and I almost feel like these people have been 3 years waiting for a reason to jump in there with all the venom they could possibly come up with. And I think over time, no, I agree, it won't be thought of as a great film. It won't be regarded as as one of the stronger films, but I don't think it's going. I think over time it'll be looked at as, that was a respectable failure. Like, you were trying for something, you didn't quite get there, but I can respect what you were trying to do. Has some good moments, but it wasn't as bad as people made it out to be when it first came out. That's my hope for it.
That's Yep.
I definitely intend to own it. I genuinely liked it, and I will admit to having a huge I want these to be as good as possible. I'm going to find the best in them. I look at them in the best light, but I also wanted the same of several Spider-Man movies that I don't think are as good as this.
Yeah.
Yep. I will own this. There are 3 Spider-Man movies I do not own. So there you go.
There you go. Yep.
Well,
Don, your thoughts?
Well, let me say that you you will find my lack of faith disturbing.
Yeah. Okay.
I do not think that people are going to forget this film. As a matter of fact, I think that people, and this, now, when I say this, I'm talking about those diehard people that just like to hate.
Yeah.
They are
Sure.
going to be the ones that are going to pick apart the third film. I mean, if there's like one, well, it's better than the second one, but they did this, they did that, and I didn't like that. And, you know, they're going to find something. They're going to be on the lookout to find every single flaw in the third film. And that's going to be a tough situation for Patty Jenkins and the other creators on these projects and actors on these projects to overcome. Now, that being said, I do have faith that it will be a better film, because I'm hoping and praying that it will be. And I do think that we as fans who actually thought that this film was decent, wasn't as horrible as some of these other people are making it out to be, are going to be pleasantly surprised and be able to hold our heads up high with regards to how the film does critically and so forth and so on. That being said, too, the people who hated this film, I can understand why they did. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with them, obviously, but I understand why. And I think that it has a lot to do with expectations. This film, because the first one did so well, you had expectations that this one was going to be like Aliens was to the Alien franchise. You had Alien, which was a good movie, but you had Aliens, which was a kick-ass movie that a lot of people saw before they saw Alien. You know, like, you know, the people come lately, they were like, oh, it was another movie before that? I mean, you know, and that's the kind of thing that people were expecting. And they and also another precedent for that was the Captain America films, where you had Captain America: The First Avenger, which was a good movie. But then you had Captain America: Winter Soldier, and it was like everybody and their mama, even people who did not like superhero films, were like, hey, that's good. Mm-hmm. So they're running into this, and, you know, haters gonna hate. Let's just be real. The people will, and there are people out there now who have been saying in the first Wonder Woman movie, I liked it. I really liked it till the third act, and then it sucked. Okay, that's
I hear that a lot.
Right. So then they see this, and then like they just trashed this whole, you know, franchise. You know, they need to fire Patty Jenkins, and they need to do this, and they need to do that, and then they'll have their pitchforks and their torches, their tiki torches, and their little polo shirts ready. And then from that point, then they'll, you know, be ready to march, you know, and you know, raise their guns. But anyway, that being said, my personal opinion on this is that this is not going to, the third film is not going to remove the bitter taste in people's mouths. What it will do is give them something better to drink that will be a bit more palatable for them. And then for the rest of us who were fans of the character and who thought this second film was not as horrible as them, we will be relieved, we will be satisfied, and we will rejoice. Those are
I guess we'll have to take that then. All right.
Yep, I'll take it.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this will conclude our discussion of Wonder Woman, and we discussed Wonder Woman, the comics character, the TV show. We've also discussed Wonder Woman, the 2017 film, and Wonder Woman 1984, the 2020 film sequel. I hope that you have enjoyed listening, and I want to thank Danielle for guesting on our show. I appreciate you being here, and we loved chatting with you. This has been a blast. Really awesome. Thank you so much.
I had a lot of fun. I'm glad you joined us today.
I had a ton of fun. I just looked at the clock and went, wow, we've been talking for a while, which is great. I had a blast. So thank you for having me.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Two Towers Talk Show. Thank you for tuning in.
Or 3 or 4, whatever.
Right. So thank you so much for our listeners. And we wouldn't be doing this without you. We really appreciate you. And we welcome you to leave comments. What did you think about Wonder Woman 2017 and Wonder Woman 1984, or the TV show or the comics? What are your opinions? Please make sure to leave comments on this video and, let us know what you think. And I'm going to leave with this. If you'd like to know more about what's going on with me and my other endeavors, you can visit me at johnfallenauthor.com. And where can they find you, RJ?
rjsullivanfiction.com. And Danielle, where can they find out more about you?
DanielleMuthing.com. And you spell the last name Muething. DanielleMuthing.com.
Very good.
All right. Well, again, thank you to our audience. Thank you to our guests. We'd love to have you back again. So, make sure you keep your calendar open for this third Wonder Woman film, and probably some other things that we'd like to have you, talk with us about. So that's going to do it. Thank you so much to everyone. And until next time, bye. The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by OG Nerds, a new social media community dedicated to nerds of a certain age, 40 and over, although all are welcome. Members are encouraged to share articles and links on their favorite nerdy topics such as animation, anime, art, books, writing, comics, manga, movies, music, sports, tech, science, TV, video games, RPGs, and more. Be sure to visit them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by Showtime Cinema in Mooresville, Indiana. Their friendly staff is always willing to go the extra mile to make your movie-going experience an enjoyable and memorable one. Enjoy the comfort of their new cushioned seating in their spacious auditoriums, and while you're there, be sure to stop by the concession stand and purchase some popcorn where real butter topping is an option. They're located at 300 South Bridge Street in Mooresville, Indiana. We hope to see you at the movies.